You transitioned from product reviews to this type of in-depth industry commentary. What motivated this change?
It wasn't bringing me as much joy. I have so much product around me that I've collected since 2012. I wasn't feeling it anymore. I love researching. I love learning the story. I love figuring out the pieces that maybe other people haven't figured out yet.
How has it impacted your content and your audience engagement?
After 12 years of being on this platform, I finally hit something that is the perfect match. I'm getting hundreds of thousands of views instead of tens of thousands of views. And I had never seen that kind of growth ever in my channel.
Were you at all afraid of losing the existing audience you had spent 7, 8, 9 years building?
I think that I had so I took that chance, and of course I was scared. You have to hard pivot. So I did lose people. I definitely had people that were upset. I still have people that are upset to this day, and they say, you know, you're nothing but a drama channel. You're nothing but a gossip. I didn't know that you were this kind of person. I knew that I had something good. When people are stealing from you, you know you have something magical. The views. The views were coming in. I loved making it, and my audience loved watching it. I was able to expose things that nobody knew, including me.
Jen Luv is a renowned beauty YouTuber with over 340,000 subscribers and more than 66 million views on her channel. Through her popular series, What's Up in Makeup, she covers industry news and product releases, so you know what's happening in the cosmetics industry right now. She also uploads deep dives into current makeup industry topics, as well as information about industry shaping events from the past. At some point, a lot of YouTube creators experience this idea of being canceled. How did you recover from that?
I really just had to put my big girl panties on and keep going because it's my full-time job. If I don't upload, I don't get paid, and I have bills to pay. But then they twisted that. They twisted my words. They really had it out for me.
The beauty community has faced a lot of controversies over the last few years. How would you approach sensitive topics, and what responsibility do you feel like you might have in shaping the public discourse?
I think it's just important to recognize that everybody's involved as a person. They're all human beings. So trying to respect that we're all flawed. We all make mistakes, but also there is a character element to it. That the way you present yourself and who you show yourself to be, that's all people have to go on. So holding people accountable and really representing the truth of what happened is important. And each individual person decides what is worthy of being held accountable. You know what I'm saying? So it really ends up being up to the individual person to decide. But what I see my role is just presenting the story, presenting what happened. And then each person that hears the story can decide how they feel about it based on their own moral compass, based on their own pre-existing opinions or experiences. And I feel like that's kind of where I fit and how I navigate it, is understanding that first, it's not about me in the end. It's about the story. So I try to keep my opinions out of it when I'm telling the story, and then just interject when necessary so that I don't skew the viewer's perspective as much as possible, because I feel like that's my responsibility, is to allow the viewer to make their own choices about how they feel about it.
Would you label yourself as a drama channel, or what would you kind of put the label on to the type of content you're creating?
So I personally am not a fan of drama channel as a name associated with my channel, because I feel like I'm not about the drama. I feel like a drama channel tends to be about gossiping and about, oh, girl, look what happened, and and it's all about the commentary and the person's opinion. And it's more opinion focused on the person creating the content, where I feel like I'm more of commentary, news, reporting, because I try to give the facts and have the facts speak for themselves rather than the drama being the focus. And it's more about information rather than just gossip for the sake of gossip, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think while the topics you discuss are almost like you could say gossipy, or just there's drama or whatever it is, I do think that you said this earlier, you're basically presenting the facts of a situation. And while the topic might be somewhat, okay, I'm talking about what's going on in the beauty community and she said, he should, she should, but here's a story. So it's almost like there's a storytelling element to what you're doing.
Right. And that's just something that I've always loved. I've always loved stories. And I feel like that's the heart of what I'm trying to do in the research, is putting it together in a story format.
You mentioned research. Let's talk a little bit about the research, because your videos are long. There's a lot of information. Walk us through how you put together each piece of content. We're not talking about your other series, What's Up in Makeup, more of the deep dives from idea conception, all the way to when it goes live.
Yeah. So I pick topics based on things that I feel like are good stories. I feel like they're engaging. I feel like there's twists and turns. There's plot points. There's characters. There's people with personality. That there's really a story to tell with some kind of conflict. So it's just finding those stories that I think are interesting. Sometimes they're old. Sometimes the story was told. These events happened 5-10 years ago, but I want to tell it in a unique way. And if I feel like I can tell it in a way that hasn't been told before, then that's appealing to me as far as choosing the topic. And then I just really just look at the public news coverage of what happened, what was public, what videos were made, what did the news outlets cover. I'm currently working on a piece about the Ordinary and Brandon Truax, who was the founder of The Ordinary. And that is an absolutely fascinating story. And looking at how the news coverage covered the launch of The Ordinary all the way up through when, unfortunately, Brandon Truax passed away. So gathering all of that and putting it in a timeline, I feel like is really important for me, because I'm a very linear thinker. So I have to put everything together. So when I find pieces, I plug them into the timeline and I start kind of developing the story. Once all of the timeline is done and I've kind of got a rough of what happened, then I write the script based on that information that I have. And as I'm going, I'm collecting links and I'm saving them so that I have my description box ready to put the links, because I like to cite my sources. I like for people to be able to go back to the original source without my interpretation. So while I'm doing all of that, I'm making that so that that's ready to go for the description box. And then once I write the script, I record my piece. And then after that, I figure out the intro, all of the little pieces that are going to go in, all the video clips, and figuring out where those are and gathering them together and organizing them into folders. And that, I think, is the hardest part, is the organization piece and keeping things organized in a way that I can then functionally put it into the video. Because when I first started doing this, I was just throwing it all into one folder and then having to search and find, and it took so long to search and find the clip that I wanted. So what I learned was that as I was organizing the information, it doesn't matter if that folder has one thing in it, but having it organized so that when I'm ready to find something, I can find it easily, because that has cut down hours of time just trying to search for where did I put that thing.
Are you labeling them based off of like where they fall in the script?
I usually, like with the James Charles series that I did, I labeled it by time. So it might have been events from 2018, January of 2019, March of 2019. Like, I organized it by time. And then I had folders for each individual person sometimes. So if there was a section about Jeffree Star, like video clips of Jeffree Star would go into one folder. Video clips of Tati Westbrook would go into another folder. If it didn't easily fall into the timeline and I knew I was going to use it throughout, like, for example, Tati Westbrook made a very big video called Breaking My Silence. And Breaking My Silence gave a bunch of information that spanned the entire timeline. So it didn't really fit nicely into a space. So that would have its own section. So I could find that easily. And then, with that particular video, I inserted that into Final Cut Pro, my editing software that I use. And I chopped that up and took the pieces out so that the pieces were ready to insert. So it's just a really long process of knowing what I want, figuring out what I want to do, then realizing what I want to do, recording what I want to do, and organizing what I want to do, and then putting it together in the video. So it's multiple steps.
Yeah. And so you got those folders with the individual video clips. Do you use a teleprompter when you're writing the script, or how long does it take you then to write the script?
For writing the script, it can take me a week to write it. 30 hours, 40 hours. Sometimes
just the script.
Just for, well, maybe not that long, because once that's from like getting the timeline and getting the research and all of that. But just the script part, I don't know, probably about 6 hours or so just to take the information I've gathered and write it out. But it really just depends on the topic.
Yeah. Wow. And then how are you finding all of the right clips to put into the video? Like, it's basically you're finding supporting evidence. Is it happening simultaneously? Is it that you do all this research first and then you're organizing the clips and then you put together the script? Is that kind of okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. I do all the, I first figure out the topic, then I break it, then I figure out what the actual story is, and then I write the script. And then I find all the pieces that will then go into, what I said when I recorded.
And then how long then does this whole process take you? Is that you said 30, 40 hours, the whole thing? Including editing?
Yeah. Including editing. Oh, that adds in a lot more.
Okay. So like, how long does it take from conception to you filming it? And then we'll do the editing.
Okay. So it really depends on the piece. Some pieces are harder than others. So like, for example, the video I did, an expose video on Nikita Dragon, starting from the beginning of her, her time on YouTube all the way up until she kind of left the internet after some personal issues. That was my first real deep dive like this. And I woke up in the morning and I worked. And then the only time I stopped was to eat and, do the things you have to physically do. And I worked all day for 4 days. And that was beginning to end. But I promised myself I would never do that again, because I was so exhausted after that, because I was on my computer for 12 to 14 hours a day for 4 days. And I didn't think that was just a functional way to treat myself. So I decided to never do that again. So whatever 12 to 14 times 4 is how many hours that video took. So just as an example.
Yeah. And then what about the editing?
And that would have included the editing.
Okay.
That was start to finish, ready to publish.
Okay. So you're looking at like between like 40, 50 hours.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay. That's a solid chunk of work for one video.
It is, but I feel like it's worth it. I genuinely do, because I enjoy it. I love researching. I love learning the story. I love figuring out the pieces that maybe other people haven't figured out yet. I love the revelations in that moment. And I feel like my audience feels that too when they're watching a deep dive and they go, oh, I didn't know that, or oh, I didn't realize that, or oh, I forgot about that. I'm having those exact same moments myself as I'm developing it. So I get that joy too. And then I get to share that joy with other people. And it's totally worth it. I mean, 100% worth it.
You transitioned from product reviews. You've been on YouTube for a while, a hot minute, doing a lot of product reviews, to this type of in-depth industry commentary. What motivated this change, and how has it impacted your content and your audience engagement?
Yeah. Makeup reviews was my thing. I was Jen Luv's reviews forever, from the inception of my channel until I think 2020 is when I switched it over just to Jen Luv. And that was when I realized that I didn't necessarily want to do as many reviews anymore. When I started, in 2012, there was hardly anybody doing makeup reviews. I mean, there were probably 20, 30 people. But compared to now, that's nothing. There's so many people doing product reviews and so many people doing it very well, doing a fantastic job at it. And my way of doing product reviews was kind of similar to the way that I do commentary, in that I was deep diving. I mean, we were talking about price per gram. We were talking about, the packaging and where it was from. And we're doing a full ingredient analysis of all of the ingredients. And I was doing swatches, arm swatches and brush swatches with labels. And I did comparison. I mean, I dove deep into these products. And what I learned was that with the inception of TikTok being popular, that people wanted that information a lot faster, which was not my favorite way to present the information. I liked all of the details. I enjoyed providing it, but there wasn't as much of an interest in those details because people kind of knew what they needed to know, I think, or didn't really care about that. They just wanted to know if it worked. They just wanted to see it go on. They just wanted to hear a quick opinion. And that just wasn't my thing. So I noticed my views started going down a little bit on my review content. And it took me a long time to create this. It was a lot of investment of time and energy and effort. And they just weren't getting the attention that they had used to. My core people still loved it, but I wasn't getting any new audience for a very long time. From 2020 until 2022, my channel flatlined. It wasn't for 2.5 years. I wasn't growing. And I think I was losing subscribers and gaining subscribers at the same rate is what it came down to. And it wasn't bringing me as much joy. I have so much product around me that I've collected since 2012. And I didn't want to buy any more product. I was tired of buying things just to use them for one video and then have them sit and collect dust. And I wasn't feeling it anymore. Long story short, way too late. I wasn't feeling it anymore. And I knew what my passion was in the research. It always has been. And I found through just kind of experimenting and dabbling in it, how much I loved it and how much my audience loved it. And that's really where the hard pivot came.
I love how you said that that's where my passion is the research, is that you were doing beauty for, 8, 9 years, product reviews. And it took you that long to maybe realize, I like beauty, but I really like more the research part of it. So what I love is that you leaned into your passion, and then what happened? At what point did you think, okay, this pivot is working? Or did you ever have any hesitation to make that pivot?
Yeah. I mean, I was doing research before I started doing commentary. I was always researching, whether it was, looking into brand owners as part of a makeup review or looking at ingredients or, I was always researching. So I always knew that I loved that piece of it. I just changed what I was researching. I changed the topic. And I think really what made me know that it was working, because I've tried to pivot multiple times in multiple different directions that didn't work, was just the views. The views were coming in. My Euphoria video, I think, is at 900,000 views that I did on the Euphoria situation that happened where they had totally flopped their shade range. That's a whole long story, but that video really took off. And then I started really leaning into the commentary, and I'm getting hundreds of thousands of views instead of tens of thousands of views. And that match, I think, is what really made the magic, was that I loved making it and my audience loved watching it. And I was gaining a lot of new people that liked the new content, and the channel was actually growing significantly. And I hadn't seen that, like I said, in 2.5 years. And I had never seen that kind of growth ever in my channel, ever. And my channel was always steadily growing. But when I switched over to commentary, it was actually growing, like big. And well.
And it gets back to that moment. Like, how are you feeling?
Oh my gosh, I was elated. I was so excited to see my channel actually, I finally did it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like after all these years, after 12 years of being on this platform, I finally hit something that is the perfect match. And it just took a long time to find that.
I know. I love it. And there you go. There's consistency for you. Right?
Yes. And I was doing fine before. It was a livable wage, what I was making and doing and creating before. I mean, I was making enough money to make this a full-time job, but to see it be able to grow even more has always been a goal. And I'm actually where I'm at as far as my views is where I've always wanted to be. So I'm really happy with where I'm at.
Reflecting on your whole YouTube journey, what pivotal moments significantly influence your channel's evolution to where it is right now?
My makeup news show, What's Up in Makeup, has gone through a lot of evolutions of what it has been. And I think the coverage of Jaclyn Hill in the makeup news show of what happened with her lipsticks, the hairy lipstick debacle, which is what a lot of people call it. That was a big thing. If people don't know that situation, just type in Jaclyn Hill lipsticks and you'll find it. My coverage of that, I think, really brought to light, I think, for my audience, what I was able to do research-wise, because when the parent company of Jaclyn Cosmetics filed for bankruptcy, I acquired the link to the public bankruptcy documents, and I was able to filter through there. And in that, I was able to expose things that nobody knew, including me, like the fact that Jaclyn didn't own Jaclyn Cosmetics. I was able to find that in the court documents. I was able to find links to people like Demi Lovato, who was mentioned, things happening with Ariana Grande in REM Beauty in those documents that people didn't know. And I think that was kind of a pivotal moment where my audience and I realized that this was something that was special. This was something that was setting my channel apart from other channels. And when I saw people like literally taking my content and putting it into their content and claiming it was theirs, that did happen. Most people gave me credit, but there were people that did not, that they basically said that they had found the information when I had found it. I knew that I had something good. When people are stealing from you, know you have something magical.
What did they say? Imitation is a sincerest form of flattery. Is that how it goes?
Yes. Yes. And it was a copy, really. It wasn't even like, there was no it's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's mine. That's mine. You didn't find that. That's my screenshot. You didn't find that.
Well, how did you handle that?
Don't say you found that. Really?
Mm-hmm.
I DM'd the person and I said, I put a public comment on their video and I was like, that's not, I did. I was like, that's mine, right? And then people, of course, the fans of that person were like, oh, lay off. It's really not that big of a deal. And I DM'd them. I'm like, why are you stealing my stuff? What are you doing? This is a person that I had interacted with many times over the years. So it was like, and it's just, that's just how the game is played in the drama world, is drama channels will sometimes do things that aren't necessarily ethical, but that's just in their nature. And you just kind of go with it.
So that doing what you do now, you're going to be dealing with these situations.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fine. It's whatever. No, not too often. Usually people will credit me, usually. And I think with the Jaclyn stuff, it was such, they call it hot tea, that people just wanted to take it and make it their own. So, yeah, but that was really a pivotal moment, I think, for my channel when I realized that I had something there.
And were there any other pivotal moments?
Yeah, I mean, that I think was a big one. And I think when I did the video on Lisa Frank and Glamour Dolls, which was a situation I was personally involved in, where Lisa Frank had collaborated with the sticker company. Lisa
I remember
Frank from the 80s and 90s had collaborated with, yes. Oh yeah. When they had collaborated with Glamour Dolls, they did a Kickstarter and the Kickstarter ended up failing and everybody lost their money, but Lisa Frank ended up kind of making off with all of the money. So I had found, again, more court documents, and I dug deep into all of the Kickstarter because I had access, because I was one of, they call it, backers. And I made a video that was my first Behind the Controversy, which is what I called the series, where I go into something in the past and bring it forward and talk about that controversy. That was the first one that I did where I had found things that even I didn't know about the situation, even being involved. And that was really fun. That was so fun. I found a voice call where the owner of Glamour Dolls was talking to the people that were currently losing their money. And I found this voice call and he is just flailing. The whole voice call, he is flailing. And it was just, I had never heard this before. And putting that into the video, people were like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe it. He was questioning, saying, well, QR codes are old and, outdated. And like, we're like, what are you talking about? It was like weird little things like that. So anyway, I think that was another pivotal moment in making the transition to commentary. That was when I knew this was the direction I needed to go. I also got some fantastic advice from my friend Marlene Estelle, who had owned Makeup Geek, and she encouraged me. I have to give her credit. She encouraged me to make a hard pivot away from reviews. where I was still going to do my monthly favorites and fails. I was still going to do the occasional makeup review. And she said, Jen, you can't. It's like, you have to hard pivot. You can't just, you can't do reviews anymore because people are going to start getting confused and it's not a good idea. Just hard pivot. And that's what I did. And it was the best advice.
I have found that through producing channels, working with people, anytime somebody wants to change their niche, I think the inclination for people is to tiptoe into it or like dip their toe into the water. But what I've found, and the same advice that Marlena gave you, is that the sooner and faster you make that hard pivot, the sooner you can move on with your life and actually embrace this new channel or content. Were you at all afraid of losing the existing audience you had spent 7, 8, 9 years building? And what was your audience reaction to that hard pivot?
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely had people that were upset. I still have people that are upset to this day, and they say, you're nothing but a drama channel. You're nothing but a gossip. I didn't know that you were this kind of person. You're, shaming me as a person because they really enjoyed the makeup review content, which is fine. They have an absolute right to that opinion. So I did lose people when I stopped the reviews, but I think that I had been priming people for the commentary content for years through What's Up in Makeup, through the top news segment where I talked about industry news and that the information that I uncovered about Jacqueline Cosmetics and Forma and Morphe and all of that kind of brought in an audience that was ready for the commentary. So I knew I was going to lose some people that really enjoyed the deep dives into the makeup reviews. Content wasn't getting great views. It was the commentary that was getting great views. So I took that chance. And of course I was scared, and I love doing makeup reviews. So I was a little sad about it. And I didn't really want to let it go because I still liked it. I still love makeup. So it was a hard choice to make. But then after I talked to Marlena, I trusted that and I did it, and I would not go back and do anything different.
Can you walk us through the toughest moments in your experience as a YouTube creator?
We're going to get into that, huh?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay. Toughest moments, I think, is the hardest parts, I think, was that period of time between 2020 and 2022 when my channel wasn't growing. And part of that was due to some drama that I got myself in by publicly saying things that I just didn't know what I was talking about. And I got a lot of backlash and a lot of people really upset with, just the way that I handled a couple of situations. And that was really hard because it's hard to take criticism and recognize when you made a mistake. It can be very painful. I have ADHD, and I have something called rejection sensitive dysphoria, which intensifies any kind of rejection more than the typical person. So when people are telling me that I'm doing something wrong, before I recognized that this was an issue, I didn't know how to handle that kind of situation. And I would clap back and I would, say you're wrong. And I would stick to my guns and I would, and it just made everything worse because I was taking it so personally. It was so physically painful. To take any kind of criticism was really difficult for me. So that made things worse. And I lost a lot of followers during that period of time. And that was really hard for me.
Are you able to be a little bit more specific in what happened?
So for example, there was, my audience is very politically left leaning. Mm-hmm. That's just the way that my audience has grown. That's the way that I personally lean. So I had done, one of the things that really got me was there was a video that, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is a senator, had put up with Vanity Fair, I want to say, some publication where I can't remember where, but she did her makeup routine and was talking about some political issues. And I had seen that the skincare YouTuber Hiram had done a commentary on what she was saying. And I was like, oh, I want to do that too. I was about to leave for a camping trip with my family. I was like, I just need something really fast to do. I just need to, do something quick and get out of here because I'm going on vacation. I was like, oh, just recreate, AOC's makeup routine, no big deal or whatever. So I sat down and I didn't necessarily have all the right products or whatever, but I was just like, just throw this up. It's not a big deal. And I was like, well, I don't really want to look like an an AOC fangirl because I loved her. It's like, I don't want to look like a fangirl. So I got to have some kind of criticism, some kind of pushback here on something, I want to look nice and fair and balanced. So I was confused about some things that she said and some terms that she used. And I pushed back a little bit on it. And, I edited the video, I uploaded it, and I left for my camping trip. And then I realized that I was very loud and wrong a couple of times in the things that I had said in the video, and I didn't use the exact products that she had said, and my audience was really upset with me, really, really upset with me. Like, I had thought that she used a term that I had heard J.K. Rowling use, and J.K. Rowling is seen as very anti-transgender rights. And I was confused why AOC was using this term. Like, why is it okay for for AOC to use this way and not J.K. Rowling can't use it? Like, so people got confused. They thought I was standing up for J.K. Rowling, which I wasn't. And it just turned into a huge mess. But it was my fault because I was rushing and it just wasn't a carefully done video. So I ended up uploading an apology video that also went over. It was a quick live stream that went over very poorly. I ended up getting rid of that because it just wasn't none of it was a good representation of who I want people to know. None of it was good. None of it was good. So then I was on a live stream with my community like I did. I used to get ready with my live stream, and there was a YouTube drama channel that really didn't like me. And her trolls were posting a lot on her social media about this incident. It was either her or one of her friends came over to my live stream and baited me. And I went off because I knew who it was. But me going off, I mean, my heart was beating and I was upset and I went off. But then they twisted that. They twisted my words as if I didn't know who I was talking to and made me look like I was saying those things in general to anybody who criticized me. But I was basically telling this group who I knew who it was to leave me alone, but they thought I was telling all critics to leave me alone. That's the way they twisted it.
Yeah.
So that made it even worse.
Oh my God.
So it was like this one drama channel that does not post anymore for very specific reasons. I'm not going to go into it because I'm not trying to out the person, but they really had it out for me. So they then started spreading more and more and more about what a terrible person I was. And because my audience was very left-leaning, any hint that I was right-leaning was a deal breaker for them. And now all of a sudden, they thought that I was somebody that I hadn't presented myself to be. There was a mismatch there. So I lost a ton of followers, and it was horrible on my end because I was dealing with that rejection sensitive dysphoria, and it was a really, really tough time. It was a really tough time. But that being said, what I got out of that was a huge understanding of what it's like to be canceled and the positive that can come out of it, because that gave me the opportunity to learn about myself and my rejection sensitive dysphoria and how I can deal with that better in the future. And also listen to what they were saying and learn and educate myself on what I had gotten wrong and have a better understanding of why what I said wasn't correct and why people were so upset. So it gave me that opportunity to learn and grow. So even though it was hard, and even though I feel like I was targeted by some people and things were blown in the wrong direction of things that didn't actually happen, I do feel like I came out of it in the end a better person. So that's the long story.
Yeah. I feel like at some point a lot of YouTube creators experience this idea of being canceled.
Mm-hmm.
How did you recover from that? Because a lot of people they'll go away, they'll stop posting, maybe they'll take a break, 3 months, 6 months, but you kind of kept going, still creating content while you said people were talking about you or you were losing subscribers. So how were you able to continue moving on as that was happening?
Yeah, I mean, I really just had to put my big girl panties on and keep going because it's my full-time job. If I don't upload, I don't get paid and I have bills to pay. That's what it came down to. Is like, I just have to keep going. What's the other option? The other option is to go back to being a public school teacher. And that had its own issues and, things that I didn't enjoy. And I knew it was even worse. The things that I didn't like about being a public school teacher, I knew were even worse now. So it was definitely not something that I wanted to do. So I just had to push through it. I didn't have a choice because I had bills to pay.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the reality of being on YouTube.
Yeah. And I think that also I had compared to other people that have gone through, the cancellation, I had a much smaller following. So I didn't have as many big I didn't have a big enough number of fans to, it's not like I'm rolling in it money wise, like some of the people that get canceled that are getting millions of views per video. If you're making $10,000 a video, you can afford to take some time off and recoup. When you're making, $500 a video or $300 a video or whatever, you can't take off because you don't have that, it's different. So hitting when a smaller creator starts, has that situation, you can't stop. You have to keep going.
I mean, let's talk a little bit about kind of the money side of things. How do you plan for financial security considering that fluctuating nature of social media?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because you really do never know. Google could cut our pay at any time for any reason and we'd have no recourse. So I'm thankful that I do have my husband. He, at the time, he owned a tattoo studio that was very successful. He's since sold that business. So, but at the time, he was making enough that we would be okay. And we had enough savings that we would be okay for a little while, but I had to work. Now, my husband sold that business and switched careers. So we have much more reliance on me and my income, which is terrifying. It's actually quite terrifying. So I think the most important thing is just to not let the money coming in make you think that you have a lot of money, because you have to budget and you have to save and you have to make sure you have that savings in case something happens, that you're going to be okay. And that's something that's hard for me because I grew up without money. So when there's money coming in, it's easy to want to just take a lot of vacations and, just jaunt off to Europe for a month. Like, I would love to do that. And I could afford to do that. But then what happens if something happens with my job? Then I would want that money back, so I can't be willy-nilly with my money. I have to make sure that I put it away and have a budget.
I mean, you have kids. So, I mean, a family that, that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a kid about to go to college in a year.
Oh my God.
So I know. Yeah. My oldest is 16. So we're looking at college.
Wow. That's a lot. That's expensive.
That's expensive.
Have there been any financial mistakes that you made with your YouTube career that you could share?
Not really. I'm pretty responsible financially. I'm pretty good. No. Oh, not really.
What would you say is the most profitable decision you made for your channel?
Switching over to commentary. And I think also because it's in the beauty niche, the RPM is still high. So commentary in other places, if I did commentary on gaming or if I did commentary on lifestyle, the RPM wouldn't, how much money I make per 1,000 views would be lower. But because it's beauty commentary, it stayed high.
Yeah, I see that with a lot of commentary channels, that they actually have a pretty low RPM and CPM. A lot of them do. And that's why they have to get so many views. But you're that nice balance of, commentary and getting all those views and having a pretty decent RPM, CPM. So would you say that the majority of your income comes from your AdSense? And as far as sponsorships, brand partnerships, how do you approach choosing those or working with them?
Brand sponsorships, I am very picky about who I work with. I get so many. I mean, I think any creator that does this is going to start getting the emails from companies that are not legit, Amazon brands that are just not necessarily the best ones to work with. I'm not saying all because I don't know all, but those are ones that I tend to avoid. It's hard to find good ones. And then finding good ones from brands that I actually want to work with. Like, so for example, there's a company called BetterHelp that got themselves into some difficulty because I think it was because they weren't vetting people, if I remember correctly, that were giving out psychological advice to people. They got themselves into some drama. So it's about researching and making sure that I don't work with companies that have a sketchy past. I've cut off brands like Scentbird, who I love to work with. I love Scentbird. I love it so much. I've been a Scentbird subscriber since basically Scentbird started, and the owner of Scentbird kind of went off on, she's very spiritual, but she said some things that are not okay with me, like that Hitler wasn't all that bad.
I didn't know
is
that.
the short.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there was a thing about Hitler. I mean, it's more complex than what she was trying to say. She was basically saying we have this world collective experience as human beings, and there has to be good and there has to be evil. So Hitler was evil, so that was why it was important for him to exist. And now we have that as part of our collective experience. But anybody saying anything positive about Hitler, that's going to be a no for me. So choosing the brands is really difficult. So that makes me lose a lot of opportunities because I am so picky, because beyond that, I have to also like the product. I have to try it and I have to like it. And I've tried a lot of beauty devices that don't work, that they were willing to pay my rates, but the device doesn't work. So I won't take that. So that whittles it down to very few brands to take sponsorships with, unfortunately.
Yeah. So then if you're looking at your overall kind of income percentage, what percentage is coming from AdSense versus brand sponsorships?
Brand sponsorships is maybe 20%.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of commentary channels, most of them will always try and have a brand deal for every single deep dive.
Yes.
Do you try and do that for
yours? I would love to. Love to, but unfortunately, there just aren't that many brands that are a good fit that I have a connection to, because also you have to have that connection and the brand willing to work with you as well. So, and some brands don't want to be in front of, a video where a person is taking their own life, like they don't want to be involved with that. Or, they don't want to be involved in front of a drama video. So I would love to have more sponsors, but I just don't have that opportunity because I'm so picky.
Are you getting a lot more opportunities? Are there any, beyond just brand deals, we could talk about that, but are there other newer opportunities that are coming your way because you are getting so many more views on YouTube?
Unfortunately, no, because I feel like if I was doing more reviews, that's when the makeup companies want to do the collaborations. And because I'm not reviewing products, it doesn't really make sense to collaborate on an eyeshadow palette with me. So I was getting more of those kinds of opportunities.
I'm surprised that you're not getting exposure, though, on maybe more traditional media, because a lot of times they will take comments or they'll take clips from YouTube creators, especially that are digging deep into stories, or they'll reach out to YouTubers to interview them, say on national, media. Have you gotten any of those types of opportunities?
I did an interview with a publication called Beauty Independent, and that was wonderful. That was fantastic. I don't know if I saw any kind of bump or uptick from doing that. I've seen some outlets, take clips and all of that, but I don't feel like that's really helped my content to grow at all.
Yeah. All right. So talking about your content again, what would you say, is there one particular video you've done that you would say was the hardest to do? Like it was difficult. It took a long time. It was hard to find the research.
Yeah. The James Charles series was really difficult. That was a 5-part series that I did from the beginning of James's career until the present. So it covered, the focus of that was, who has he presented himself to be as a person? Can we identify who this person is based on who they've shown us to be? And have they always been that person since the beginning? Or has he changed over time and grown and learned and changed into a better person? And we learned that no, he has not. And actually, it's the fact that he's gotten away with so much has emboldened him to even present himself to be even less of a good person. So that was very difficult because the story of James Charles is so segmented in that we found out information through videos like from Tati Westbrook, her Bye Sister video, her video about, breaking my silence, gave us information at different times in different pieces. So it was really difficult to put that story together in a linear way because we didn't find out the information in a linear way. And also there were voices that were commenting on what was happening with him that maybe we didn't always see. People there's a man named Cam Lester. Her name's going out of my head. But anyway, there were other voices of people that I didn't necessarily know were involved in it that I then found. So then I have to take their story and plug that into the timeline. So that was extremely challenging. That's the hardest video I've ever made as far as how much work it was and how complicated it was. It was extremely complex.
It wasn't just one video, though. It was a series that was about 8 hours worth of content.
Yeah, it was a 5-part series. And I ended up, thanks to my audience, because this is a huge tip that my audience told me. I wouldn't have known this, but they told me, they said, Jen, now that you've got the 5-part series done, put it together in one video so that people can just listen to it all the way through. I never would have thought to do that. And now we have an 8-hour and 45-minute long deep dive of the 5 parts together. And I cut out the welcome back to my channel, blah, 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 blah. I cut all of that out so that it continues to just flow throughout. And the only way you're going from one part to another is I did keep the intro in because it's kind of a montage situation and I thought they were cool. So I kept those in. But yeah, that was a great tip from my audience because that's another way to monetize it. And because it's so long, you can put so many ads in it.
Yeah.
And then as people watch, then you get more revenue from it. And it's content that's already been created. So it's just an additional, additional revenue, which I never would have thought of. So yeah, so it was a 5-part series that I then put together into one long piece.
Did you jump into this deep dive thinking it was going to be a 5-part series of 8 hours? Were you thinking it was just going to be one video?
I thought it was going to be 3. I predicted there was going to be 3. There was going to be one about his come up and how he became a creator. There was going to be one about all of his scandals. And then there was going to be one about the allegations that he had inappropriately interacted with minors. I thought that was going to be it. So the scandal one was going to include all the things with Tati Westbrook and Jeffree Star and all of that. So that turned into 3 videos. Because there was so much that I didn't know. There was so much I didn't realize. So we had the intro video. The scandals ended up being 3 parts. And then, is that right? Yeah. And then the allegations ended up being the last part.
And in 8 hours, I am currently in the middle of it. I want to give you props. You did a very good job on that video or the series. I'm 4 hours into it.
Thank you.
So it's kind of like podcast. I've been listening to it, but it's riveting and fascinating, and the amount of work and effort and time.
Thank you.
I just want to give you a major props for that. And also, you're so good at sharing all these details and the story without it being confusing. Because I think you could lose, not you, but I think in storytelling or in giving so many details, you could really lose people. How is it? Do you think it's just a natural inclination, or are you aware of giving certain details, but trying to do it in a way that doesn't confuse the viewers?
Yeah, I think that's difficult because it's hard to know what's interesting to somebody, and maybe it's not interesting to me, but maybe it'll be interesting to somebody else. And I think because I do have a short attention span, I kind of go with that. I just kind of lead with my gut on that. Is this really important? Is this really engaging? Is this really relevant? And I do cut things out, but I tend to lean toward leaving it in as long as I can make it part of the story that moves the story along. That's really the deciding factor. Does it move the story along? Is it an important piece of information to understand something later? And that's how I decide if it's going to stay in, because it is, you can easily get in the weeds and just start talking about random stuff. It's completely irrelevant, but it's, I think that it's just really processing and thinking about it from the viewer's perspective. Like, would I want to watch this? If I don't want to watch it, chances are no one else can watch it.
Well, it's a good barometer. Have you ever had any of the people you've covered such as someone like Nikita Dragon, James Charles, or even some of these brands reach out to you as a response to the content you created?
Not directly. When I was doing the information about the bankruptcy, it was earlier than that. I had contacted Morphe customer service about a change in their formula, that they had said that their formula for the Jaclyn Hill palette was the same. And I found out that it was different. And not only was it different, it was no longer vegan, which is a very important thing for a lot of people. I'm not vegan, but there are a lot of people that it's important. And I had reached out. I had asked them through customer service. They said that everything was the same. I found out it wasn't the same. I mentioned in the video, hey, they told me it was the same and it wasn't the same. So they ended up publicly apologizing to me on Twitter and Instagram, and saying that they did make a mistake and that there was a change in the formula. But that's really the extent of it. Usually people don't talk to me afterward. I recently did a piece on Susan Yara from Naturium. I always try to reach out to people for comment to try to get information and make sure I have the story right. Because like I told Susan, I said, the last thing I want to do is spread misinformation. If there's something you want to share with me, make sure you tell me so that I can put it in the video, because I want to make sure it's well-rounded. I want to make sure I have all the details. And she responded to one little piece very vaguely. I asked follow-up questions and she did not respond. After the piece came up, I still have not heard from her. Which I wish that I could hear from her. I wish that she would work with me on it, because I am all about the truth, whatever the truth is. And I don't want to not have your side of the story. Please tell me your side. I've reached out to multiple influencers who just don't want to be involved. They just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to tell me things, and that's fine. But then just know that your side isn't going to be there.
Yeah, people are going to come up with their own conclusions.
Right. And all I have is the people that do talk to me. That's all I have. And I'm always going to be on the side of whatever is the truth. So I feel like sometimes maybe people are a little scared to talk to me, which they shouldn't be, because I want to put their side out there.
Is that part of your process? Do you reach out to every person that you are going to do a video on?
Not every person. So like, for example, with Nikita, I have no way to contact Nikita. She's not following me anywhere. Her information is not public. I have no way to talk to her. So I did not reach out to her, but there are people that I have reached out to. James and I have not talked in many, many years, so I didn't reach out to him, but I did reach out to other people that were involved in the story and tried to get their side of things. Sometimes they'll give me little snippets, sometimes they won't. Like, for example, Gabriel Zamora gave me a fact that I needed to understand this one particular situation of the story, and that led into an interview that we did. We actually sat down and talked for almost 4 hours. So that I'm currently working on that. Only as of this time we're talking, only the first piece has gone out. But yeah, sometimes it leads to a deeper relationship with the influencers, and because they know that I'm not trying to be against them. I'm just on the side of truth. Have you ever started a story
and just didn't finish it just because you didn't want to, or there was something about it that you didn't feel comfortable doing?
Probably. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but probably. I've probably abandoned stories before, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
How do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone that cared about people and cared about honesty and truth and transparency, and just wanted to share that. Just wanted to tell stories and share what actually happened without... There's always going to be a bias, because of course we all have our own opinions, but in an unbiased way as possible, as humanly possible. And really cared about just transparency, truth, and honesty.
What do you think you've had to sacrifice to get to where you're at today?
Sleep. That's the biggest thing I've sacrificed. I've sacrificed a lot of sleep, because sometimes, you stay up late doing things. When I was teaching, I would teach all day. I think we've had this conversation before. I think I've told you this, that, I would teach all day, and then I would come home and I would make dinner, and then I put my kids to bed, and then I would edit. And then I would get so tired that my eyes would start closing. And then I would I'd say, okay, I can't anymore. So I would set an alarm for 30 minutes, and I would take a power nap, and now it's 2 a.m, and I would wake up and I would edit as long as I could, and then till I couldn't. And I'd do that until it was either done or until I had to get up in the morning and go to work. So I think that's been the biggest thing, is just, but I don't mind working hard. I don't mind working hard, but I think the sleep thing can really weigh on you after a while. It's really not a good practice. Do not recommend. But I don't think I've really like sacrificed a whole lot, fortunately. I feel like leaving my teaching career wasn't a sacrifice. It ended up being a wonderful decision for me. I get to spend time with my kids. I get to be home, which is wonderful. So I get to see them when they get home from school and ask them how their day
That's a
was.
lot.
I don't really feel like I've had to sacrifice a whole lot. I feel like this has been an excellent career move for me, leaving teaching to do YouTube.
Is there a part of your journey or work at all that creates any kind of inner conflict for you?
I think sometimes it's hard knowing that I might hurt somebody's feelings, because I don't like hurting people's feelings, or if I know that something's going to make somebody look bad and I don't feel like they deserve it, but they did something bad, so I have to be honest. That's hard for me. That's hard. But it's part of telling the truth, and it's part of transparency. It's like I never want to hurt anybody, but sometimes it's just the nature of what I do that some people, are going to go, ugh, I wish she hadn't said that. But if it's true,
that's your job. I mean, technically, it's kind of like
hard.
You're an investigative reporter.
Yeah. So I think that's the hard. I think that's something that's hard for me.
Is there anything about YouTube or the industry or anything at all that keeps you up at night?
Mostly when I'm up at night, it's because I'm thinking about what I want to put in the script or what I want to say. I know that's not the answer, but I mean, I think that right now, and not to go back to politics, but I think that because we're going to have a seismic shift in the U.S. between, how our government was run and how it's going to be run by the next administration, I am fearful for how that's going to impact things because we just don't know. We just know that it's going to be a seismic shift and we don't know how it's going to be different. And that's scary for me in multiple ways. And I think that's something that's keeping me up at night right now, is how is that going to affect, from me all the way out to the whole world? How is that going to affect things? That's what's keeping me up right now, because I don't know, I have no idea what's going to happen. So I think that's the thing that's keeping me up right now.
What do you think, if at all, AI has a place right now as far as YouTube, or how it might be changing YouTube and the content that people are watching?
Actually really like the way that YouTube's implementing AI right now, because I feel like what they're doing is they're more using it for, like, they want to do more auto dubbing to give access to content in other languages, which I love. I love that. I love auto-generated captions. I like the idea of being able to use AI through Google to find content ideas. I think where it'll cross a line is if they start taking people's content in order to repurpose it for the monetary gain of other people or something. You know what I mean? Kind of like AI-generated art, how it's basically just a conglomerate or mush of existing artists, and then they use it in order to kind of steal from them. That's where AI kind of draws a line for me. But I feel like informationally, it's a good thing. Like, I think there's a lot of good things that can come out of AI and in the YouTube space. And I think YouTube is trying to handle it in an ethical way.
Do you use it at all? Any
far.
tools or anything at all in your process?
Yeah, I actually use ChatGPT sometimes to spit things out. If I can't figure out a way to word something, I'll say, reword this in a more concise way, and then I'll take that and I'll translate it into my voice. Sometimes they'll give me an idea for a word here or there, but I don't take it directly from there. I interpret it. It just kind of is a way to push me forward, or to generate a title, or just to kind of give me ideas that I can then take and, put it through my brain and shuffle it and spit it out in a different way. It kind of helps me think about it. I use ChatGPT all the time.
Yeah, it's helpful for this. It's helpful for just brainstorming.
Brainstorming and ideas. And yeah, but I always make sure I put it in my own voice, because I had an excellent English teacher who taught me about plagiarism and taught me how to put things in my own voice. So that's what I do with ChatGPT. That's what I do with the articles that I find, always putting in my own voice.
Yeah, and I think it's paying off for you.
Thank you.
What's the joy or satisfaction that you didn't expect to find from your work?
I think that it's kind of like what I was saying earlier about the research piece and finding new information and having that aha moment, that excitement of, I didn't know and oh my goodness, this is new, this is interesting, this is exciting, and having that feeling, and then being able to put that together and have my audience have that same experience and create those emotions, those positive excitement emotions in my audience, and being able to impart that I did not know was going to happen. And it's one of my favorite things about the content that I make right now.
So what's next for you? What's next for Jen Luv and your channel? And
next for me is, I think I'm going to keep trucking along, man. And I want to beef up my editing even more. I feel like my editing has gone next level, but I want it to get even better. I want to really make my content look professional and make you feel like you're watching Netflix or some other kind of streaming TV series. I want you to not be able to tell that this is a video produced by one human being. I want to be able to put out the best quality with the best information and just create that excellent viewing experience. That's where I want to take it. But the deep dives aren't going anywhere because I love it so much.
Have you ever considered creating a team and hiring people to help you?
I have, but so I had a team a while ago, and that went really badly. I worked with a team for quite a few years. I had a lead person that I was working with, and we had a falling out over the change of What's Up in Makeup, where it used to be very news-like, where I would stand up in front of the camera and I would read from a script, and that was what she helped me with. And I decided I didn't want to do it like that anymore. She took it very personal. She was very upset and turned a lot of the team against me, and it was a really bad situation. She was also running my Facebook group at the time, and she kicked me out of my own Facebook group, and it basically went really bad really fast. So my faith and trust in having another person, even though I know not everybody is, everybody's different. There are wonderful people out there that can do wonderful work and are good, ethical, wonderful people. It's hard for me to trust again. It's hard for me to do that. So I think eventually I would love to, because I know that there are things that other people could do so much better than me if I would just trust them. But I'm not ready yet. Not ready yet.
Yeah. I mean, so you mentioned What's Up in Makeup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was going to be my last question before, but now I have another question to end on. You said that deep dives commentary isn't going anywhere. What's Up in Makeup has been that one piece of content you've had since the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate that going anywhere?
I don't, because it is a way to do commentary on things that are happening right now. Where the deep dives can be retrospective, What's Up in Makeup, the top news segment, is what's happening right now. If anything goes away, it would be the product report section, which is where I talk about new makeup releases. Because when I started doing What's Up in Makeup back in 2014, nobody was talking about new product releases like that. And now there are so many people talking about new product releases, and they do it very well. So I can see maybe one day the product report part, the new makeup releases part, going away. But top news, no way. Nah, that's staying, because it's commentary. It's commentary on what's happening right now. And I think that it's important to stay in the relevant of current news, not just going backward, but what's happening now.
Well, Jen, thank you so much. You have given us so much insight into your journey here on YouTube, the many, many years of experience that you've been on the platform. For anybody that is not familiar with you and your content, where can they find you?
I am either Jen Luv or Jen Luv's Reviews everywhere, mostly Jen Luv's Reviews. So on Instagram, on TikTok, on Threads, Jen Luv's Reviews. And then on YouTube, Jen Luv.
Well, it's been awesome. This is actually for those of you guys
Thank you, Erika,
who may or may not know, this is Jen's second time here on the show. The first time was, I don't know, 2016, a long time ago. And that's how we first met. And I have to say, Jen is a dear friend of mine. I adore Jen. So I'm so glad to have you in my life as a friend, and for you coming here on the show. You are one of those, how you are is how you are, this is who you are. You really are that genuinely nice person that cares about people. So,
Thank you,
and I can
Erika.
say that with sincerity.
Thank you so much.
I know you, and you do care about people a lot. And I love that about you. So thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you, Erika. Thanks for having me.
Bye.